This week on This is Game Boy Lite. Hello everybody and welcome to episode 2 of This is Game Boy Lite. I am eBloodyCandy. If you watched This is Game Boy Lite episode 1, Mo recalled that we will be doing some Lite episodes here and there as kind of like fillers when the two of us can't get together because we are, oddly enough, very busy people. Me with marathons and other various retro projects, Mo with because he actually has a life, etc. But I wanted to make a This is Game Boy Lite episode based around the entire Kirby series for the classic Game Boy. Kirby is probably not going to be a game that Mula and I focus on during the mainstay of the series, just because the games are not obscure. A lot of people know about them, a lot of people have played them, etc., etc. Yeah, before we get started here, let's before we get into Kirby itself, let's talk HAL Laboratories first. Let's talk about the creator of the Kirby franchise. HAL Laboratory used to be known as Halkin, and it's a Japanese video game development company founded in 1980, basically around the time the Famicom was developed. HAL Laboratory and Nintendo have been very, very key partners with each other, and Iwata, who would eventually become Nintendo's 4th president, started with HAL Laboratories. HAL has been around for a long time. They're still around. Them and Nintendo are still very, very much partners with each other. You may know HAL Laboratories from such classics like Adventures of Lo on the NES. Obviously Kirby. You have Daydream and Davy if you ever watched AVGN or just actually have played it on the NES. Earthbound. That's a big one. Not many people have heard of that one, am I right? Then you have various golf games like HAL's Hole in One. Pokemon Snap, HAL had its hand in the Pokemon Stadium games. Obviously Smash Brothers, because Kirby and all of them are in the games. From the SNES era and the late Game Boy era on, HAL would almost exclusively focus on Kirby from there on out. They would have other little things coming in, like Mother 3 for the Game Boy Advance, Ghostbusters 2 on the Game Boy, Tracks, that adorable tank shooting game. It wouldn't be until the 3DS is when they would start basically opening the box again to other various genres and different types of games, such as Face Raiders, Bye Bye Box Boy, Picross. But again, their essential focus is Kirby at this point in time. It's actually a very interesting company, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on them, but I would encourage you guys, if you are interested in the Kirby franchise or just the history of Nintendo in general, look up HAL Laboratories and do a little bit of research on them. They're a very interesting startup company around the time that the Famicom became the Famicom. So yeah, with that, let's dive into the Kirby series. We're going to start right away with the 2 canon Kirby games that would come to Game Boy. The very first game of the entire franchise, honestly, Kirby's Dream Land 1. The game was released in April of 1992 in Japan, and then August in 92 for Europe and North America. The premise of Dreamland 1 is that King Dedede stole all of the food from Dreamland, and it is now up to Kirby to go defeat King Dedede and retrieve all that food and spread the food across Dreamland once again so everyone can eat. Along the path, Kirby's going to face such villains as Wispy Woods, Lo, and La, who have games based after them from Adventures of Lo, Kabula, Kracko, and obviously King Dedede. As you progress through the game, it's your basic, I guess you can call it a platformer, if you will. Kind of hold right, press A to jump, press up to float up and flutter. Kirby can go big and you can float across levels. Press down to duck. B, you suck in the sprite, so whether it be an enemy or just a box object. And then from there, you can either press B again to spit out said object as a star to destroy something in front of you, or press down to swallow said object, but nothing will happen except you just swallow the object. Very, very basic game. Difficulty factor, it has two different difficulties. It has something called normal mode and extra mode. Normal mode is obviously the easier version of the game. And you really don't know how to open up extra mode until you've beaten normal mode, and then once you've run through the credits, it actually tells you, like, hey, try extra mode, and it tells you a button combination at the title of a sequence to press to enable extra mode. And what extra mode does is that it basically makes the game about 1.5 to 2 times faster. It puts extra sprites into the stages, and now Kirby is going to take extra damage depending on the sprite or enemy that it encounters. So it does ramp up the difficulty a bit, but overall the game on a difficulty scale is varies from very easy if you're doing normal mode to moderately easy on extra mode. If you take your time through the game, literally just inhale everything that you encounter, there's a chance that you just will never get hit at all. So overall, just a very, very easy game. Like I said, the game came out in 92 worldwide. Came out in Japan first. It would be later released on the Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console in 2011. But another fun fact about that, though, is worldwide it came out in 2011. It wouldn't be until 2016 that South Korea would get this game on 3DS. So I don't know why the localization like that was so vastly different for the re-release of the game, but, you know, it is what it is when it comes to older games like this. Kirby Superstar on the Super Nintendo basically paid homage to Kirby's Dream Land called Spring Breeze. So if you've played Kirby Superstar and gone into Spring Breeze, you basically have played the homage to Kirby's Dream Land. It has all the 4 or 5 levels that you'd go through. The only difference is you have power-ups in Kirby Superstar. Going back to like Kirby's Adventure, which would be the next Kirby game, and just moving on to the newest Kirby game, Star Allies, the games pay tribute to Kirby's Dream Land as being the first Kirby game to be released, and that it basically paved the way for how to basically build this monster franchise and obviously make a crap ton of money. Something to note about Kirby, though. So Kirby, almost this wasn't created. Kirby was actually, the sprite of Kirby was actually a placeholder for the game. It was meant to be another character. I couldn't really find what it was supposed to be. Sakurai was the designer of the game and basically created Kirby. And it was just like, you couldn't really figure out another sprite or another character that would really fit into this design. So they basically took the placeholder that they created, Kirby, and was like, well, what if we gave it abilities? What if we did this with it? And then it kind of built off of that, thus creating what we have today as Kirby. I know Kirby's floating ability was very heavily inspired by balloons. Sakurai wanted the ability of, if someone were to fall into a pit, he wanted the player to have the ability to be able to float out of it, or have the ability to, try and survive through it. And then when the next Kirby game came along, he proposed the idea of like, hey, when Kirby sucks in this thing and swallows in, why not absorb this power-up type deal? But it's a very interesting history of this game of what could have been and what didn't become of it. Like there was ideas thrown out for Kirby to basically headbutt and kick enemies like a soccer ball instead of being able to suck and swallow, spit, whatever it is. Man, this is gonna sound slightly over PG-13 taken out of context. So it's just a very interesting background of the game and how the whole Kirby franchise became to be. But diving into the next game, we have Kirby's Dream Land 2, which would come out in 1995. So with the huge success of Kirby's Dream Land 1, became player's choice for Nintendo. With the next game that came out, a couple years later, called Kirby's Adventure for the NES and Famicom, the huge success that game saw, it was only natural for HAL Laboratory to just keep building on to this franchise, this empire of Kirby, essentially, and released Kirby's Dream Land 2, which is a direct sequel of Kirby's Dream Land 1. In Kirby's Dream Land 2, the story is, as a resident of Dreamland, the Rainbow Bridge that connects the Rainbow Islands. So if you are familiar with Kirby's Adventure, if you're familiar with Kirby's Dream Land 2, Kirby's Dream Land 3, there are specific worlds that you venture into. Like, so once you've defeated Wispy Woods, you go on to World 2 and face off against Paint Roller. You beat Paint Roller. If you go to World 3, you face off against Mr. Shine, Mr. Bright, etc., etc. That's what they mean by the Rainbow Bridge connecting the Rainbow Islands. But the bridge was stolen by an evil being called Dark Matter. And the intent of Dark Matter is to conquer Dreamland, and he has possessed King Dedede and the offset to try and defeat anything that would come at him. So what Kirby does, spoiler alerts in the end, is hop on his Warp Star and then goes out and tries to defeat Dark Matter. And in this game, we now have the introduction of Dreamland friends, or Dream friends, animal friends, however you want to say what they are. We now have access to Ku, which is the owl. We have Rick, which is the hamster. We have Kine, which is the fish. So now we have these three buddies that Kirby can basically latch onto and kind of alter his abilities a bit more. Like, for instance, when you have Spark, if you're with Kine and you have Spark, Kirby turns into a light bulb and lights up dark caverns. You can actually shoot the light bulb out of Kine's mouth. Another side effect with Kine is if you get hit and lose your ability, we'll talk about abilities in a minute, you can actually re-suck in your ability and regain it again while with Kine. Ku, for example, if you inhale Sir Kibble's ability, which is the boomerang type ability. If you're just Kirby, you only throw one boomerang at a time, but if you're with Ku, you get to throw 3 at a time, so it's like a spread shot. If you're Rick, if you have the needle ability and you're on top of Rick's back basically just turns into all spikes. The attacks, the abilities are slightly altered with your Dream Friends, and your Dream Friends give you a bit more flexibility of how to approach a stage, and sometimes you need them to get through the stage. For example, Ku, there's stages in World 2 or World 3, I can't remember off the top of my head, where you have to go against a wind current. And the quickest and easiest way to get through this wind current is to have Ku to fly against this wind current. And obviously Ku gives you the ability to fly across the screen at a pretty rapid rate. Kine lets you swim faster and have more control underwater. Rick, you jump a little higher with Rick. Rick is kind of useless though. He's fun to play with casually, but in the speed run, Rick is pretty much useless. Something of interest with this game, though, is that it has multiple endings associated with it. We have what we call in the speedrunning community, you have any percent, and then you have best ending. And any percent means that the game ends once you've defeated King Dedede. You still get a credit, so once you've beaten King Dedede, you still get a credit sequence, still get the sprite roll, but at the end you get this dark silhouette of this mysterious matter with question marks, and you're like, oh, what is this? Type deal. But in the game, there are crystal shards, or pieces of the bridge. I don't remember the lore specifically of what the pieces actually are. But what you do is you have to collect these pieces, and these pieces are typically behind blocks that require a certain ability to break open, and back in secret rooms to go into to collect said crystals. And once you've collected all of the bridge pieces or crystal pieces in all of the islands, once you have defeated King Dedede, the curse comes out of King Dedede, and now you have to face off against the ultimate end boss of Kirby's Dream Land 2, which is Dark Matter. And it's basically a shoot 'em up. It's kind of a cool game, kind of a cool fight. So let's talk about abilities a bit. This is the second game of the Kirby series to incorporate abilities. The first one being Kirby's Adventure. Abilities in this game, you have Burning, you have Cutter, you have Ice Needle, Parasol, Rainbow Sword, which is what you use against dark matter, Spark, and Stone. So when you sucked in a fire enemy, you're probably going to get burning. If you sucked in a snowman, you're going to get ice, etc., etc. So now that we have these abilities also alter the way Kirby attacks. So instead of having the cute suck in and swallow type deal, now Kirby can throw a cutter or freeze an enemy, or maybe there is a long sequence going down that has some spikes. You grab a parasol, which is the umbrella, and you kind of float your way down a little bit slower, kind of more safer. Maybe there's a sequence that you want to go straight down and you want to go down fast. You take stone. Or maybe there's some hills. You take stone and roll down the hill. There's a lot of different altered paths now through this game. So to achieve 100% of this game, you also have to do the sub-games, which is vastly different than Kirby's Adventure. So these sub-games are going to be things of like boss endurance. What else you got? You got like a music room, I believe. Like they're kind of dumb little mini games, but like there's a star catching mini game, I believe, as well. Not many. I don't really go into them as when I'm playing through this game, but for the most part, like there's mini games as well that will get you like 1-ups or abilities and just overall game completion. So let's talk over the bosses real quick. So we have Wispy Woods again. So the boss from Green Greens in Kirby's Dream Land 1 is back and wants vengeance. Now we have Nruff and Nelly. So remember how we used to have Lololo and Lalala? Well, they decided to retire and go on to their own adventure. Now we have Nruff and Nelly, which is like the raccoon and the, I can't remember the other animal. And then we have Sweet Stuff. I can't remember what Sweet Stuff was. Then we have Ice Dragon, which will eventually become just a mini-boss type deal later on in the Kirby series. Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright, this is your sun and your moon. Kracko, pretty much a staple in the Kirby franchise. King Dedede and Dark Matter. And your mid-bosses, you have Mr. Frosty, who is a walrus that throws ice blocks at you. You have Blocky, which is literally just like a stone block that runs after you. Later on, you would get access to Chef Kasaki, Fan, which, fun fact about Fan in the NES and Famicom version, is a turtle, and then in the remake of Nightmare in Dreamland is an elephant. I think I got those right. It's either that way or it's reversed. And the sprite changes regardless. So, and obviously you have your base enemies in here too. Like you have Squishy, which was in KDL 1. You have Kracko Jr., which was in KDL 1. Poppy Bros, KDL 1. Like you have a lot of the sprites from the original Kirby game coming into this as well. And again, Kirby's Dream Land 2 was a bestseller for the Game Boy, selling more than 2 million copies. Like that's a ton of copies. And it held an 82% game ranking. Like it was just absolutely incredible how well this game was perceived worldwide. So obviously another player's choice from Nintendo. And this game would get re-released again on the 3DS in 2012, in America in 2013, in South Korea in 2016. But if you haven't played KDL 2, if you had a choice between KDL 1 and KDL 2, honestly, play KDL 2 over KDL 1. You'll get more story behind Kirby's Dream Land 2 than you will Kirby's Dream Land 1, and you'll get more bang for your buck from Kirby's Dream Land 2. So yeah, with that, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to discuss some of the spin-off titles of Kirby for the classic Game Boy. Alright, welcome back everybody. We are about to hit our second segment of the Kirby series here, where we're going to talk about the spin-offs. We just got done talking about the two canon or the two storied Kirby games, Kirby's Dream Land 1 and Kirby's Dream Land 2. But now let's touch base on the spin-offs, starting with Kirby's Block Ball. So Kirby's Block Ball is a very interesting game. If you've ever played like Breakout or I guess you can kind of compare it to Arachnoid in a bit too, but it's more so like Breakout. So basically, you have these little like blocks across the screen, and you have a little paddle on the bottom, sometimes on the sides and top, where you hit Kirby in his ball form, and once it's hit into these blocks will either crack or break, and the goal is to clear the room. You have to break all of the blocks, literally break out. And along the way, you come and encounter sprites, like you encounter squishies, you encounter Waddle Dees, you encounter enemies with abilities such as Spark, such as the Needle. And basically what it is that once you've cleared the screen, you have 5 or 6 screens, however many screens there are in a world, then you go and face off against a boss. This game has 7 worlds, I believe, and what you have to do is once you've completed all 7 worlds, pending if you've acquired high score in the 7 worlds will determine whether or not you face DDD or not. So if you've just did the bare minimum of just defeating all of the worlds, I believe there's 10. Thinking about it now, once you've beaten the 10 stages, doing the bare minimum, you just get like a screen that says "The End?" with like DDD over the Fountain of Dreams, kind of like looming over Dreamland right now, and at the bottom it says "Let's try again." So in order to reach this 11th stage, essentially you have to achieve you have to tie or beat the high score in all 10 stages. And mind you, like the high score for the later stages are quite difficult. Like these high scores are based off of like a combo sequence. Like if you've grabbed like the bonus thing to make all the blocks breakable in one hit, how many you get to there, how fast do you clear a room, how fast do you clear a world, like what items have you obtained. Like there's a lot going on to that attributes to this high score. And if you're not fast enough, if you're not accurate enough, if you're not good enough, like you don't get this high score. So there's a lot of practice involved, a lot of luck involved as well. But once you've reached stage 11, you fight DDD, like it is the best feeling ever, because for me personally, like I played this game blind for the first time like a year or two ago, and it took me 7.5 hours to get to DDD and defeat DDD in this game. Like it's not an easy game. Like it's not one of those quick games that you just pop in, play for 20 minutes and be done. But with that aside, it is a very fun game. This game came out in 1995 in Japan and Europe around Christmas time, actually. And America wouldn't get it until around the summer of 1996. Again, like all the other Kirby games so far, it was re-released on the 3DS Virtual Console in 2011 and 2012. There's not really much to note about the game. Something a little fun about it is once you've completed the game, like once you've gone and fought King DDD and defeated King DDD, your Kirby sprite next to your save file looks like royalty now. It has like a crown on top of it. Like it shows that, hey, you beat the game for real. Show this off to your friends. The game does offer some mini games as well. So we have air hockey, you have star catcher, you have up cloud and up down. So basically with these mini games, all you do is these mini games give you 1-ups. And you're going to need some of these 1-ups later on the levels if you're trying to like rush this high score. To be fair, the boss fights are exceptionally easy. Literally all you have to do is just angle your ball right and jump into the boss. A little fun fact about the game, if you time your sequence right when Kirby's about to hit your paddle, if you press the A button, Kirby goes into full Kirby sprite and actually does extra damage to blocks and to enemies as well. Which is, the window to do that isn't a very tight window, like you can accidentally do it just by pressing A. So that was the first spin-off to come to the Kirby franchise, and obviously it's just howling Nintendo, like, hey, Kirby was a huge success, like, let's basically, like, try and make some money off it, let's try and push this game a little bit more and see what things work, what things won't work. Like, when this was done, so, like, the beginning of this game, Hal inspected the game and told the design team that it basically wasn't Kirby. So the team spent like 6 months to a year like overhauling the entire game to make it to what it is today. So like there must have been a point in time where like where Kirby's block ball may have had the Kirby sprites, but it just didn't have that Kirby feel to it. It maybe didn't have the playful graphics, the colorful music, the things that make Kirby associated with it. But yeah, so moving on to the next game, you have Kirby's Pinball. I know a lot of people know what this game is. This was probably, in my opinion, and from what I can tell, this might have been the most popular Kirby spinoff to come around. Kirby's Pinball came out in 1993. So actually, this was the first spinoff, honestly. This actually came out before Kirby's Dream Land 2 and was re-released in 2012. So exactly what the title sounds like. It is a pinball game featuring Kirby. And the fun fact about on the cover, it says "Take aim with Kirby." So just like any other pinball game, you have your flippers, and you have to flip and basically get points and work and do what you do in pinball. This game, however, actually has an end game, which is very different for an actual pinball game. So when you start off the game, you go into this overworld, basically, and you have 3 levels to choose from. You can either face off against Wispy Woods, Kracko, or Poppy Bros Sr. So if you choose one of the stages, basically what you have to do is you work your way up to the very top of the pinball board. And at the top of the pinball board, you're going to be faced with a certain challenge, whether it be to break all 3 chick eggs before the Poppy can basically seal up the egg, or it's defeating Mr. Bright and Mr. Shine in a certain amount of time, or whatever the challenge may be. And then once you've completed said challenge, a warp star will appear, and once you've taken that warp star, you now have to go face off against the boss. So let's go against Wispy Woods for example. We've made it. We've collected the 3 chick eggs. We've hit the warp star. Now we're going into Wispy Woods. Wispy Woods can still drop apples and Gordos, just like in Kirby's Dream Land 1. So when you flip a Kirby into the tree, you want to try and hit the tree in the base of the tree. If Kirby happens to hit a Gordo, which is the little spiked balls, Kirby kind of like loses control a little bit and kind of flips around in the air. If a Gordo hits a flipper, I believe the flipper locks, and you can't actually use that flipper for a couple seconds. So if you fail to defeat the boss and fall down the hole and go back onto the pinball board, you need to redo the challenge again and get back into the boss room. However, the game is friendly enough to where whatever damage you've done to the boss, that damage is still already dealt, and you can just basically pick up where you left off. Once you've defeated all 3 levels, you then face off against DDD. DDD is a nightmare in this game. DDD has the ability all of a sudden to shoot lightning out of his hands. And when DDD shoots lightning out of his hands, it locks up your paddles. Eventually, he does an attack where he shoots lightning out of both hands, which locks both of your paddles. And if you don't hit DDD on a rebound or whatever, he'll keep shocking and you will lose a life. When the ball goes down, so we didn't talk about that. So once you're at the bottom of the screen and you let the ball go down to the hole, you have basically a second chance with a platform to thrust the ball back up into play. The more and more you thrust this ball back into play, the weaker and weaker your platform gets. So once you've hit X amount of falls down, that platform isn't going to launch Kirby anymore. You're going to lose a life. After you've lost 3 lives, it is game over. There is no continue. There is no save and quit. There's no backup. There's no nothing. Like once you've game overed, you are done, and you have to restart the game all over again. It's a very unforgiving game. Like I said, it's just your base pinball game with an actual end game to it, but it's very unforgiving if you do mess up. And there is high scores and stuff and such the matter. Like cutscenes will interrupt your gameplay if you've achieved a certain high score. When you game over, lose a life, whatever, you can type in your initials for the high score. So that's basically Kirby's Dream Land in a nutshell, or Kirby's Pinball Land, in a nutshell. It's literally just pinball with sprites from Kirby's Dream Land 1. And you can kind of see they started pulling a little bit from Kirby's Adventure as well, because like I said, Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright does make an appearance into this game. So yeah, moving on to probably the most lesser known spin-off of the classic Game Boy series is Kirby Star Stacker. Kirby Star Stacker came out in 1997, all around the world, and was re-released on Virtual Console in 2012 and 2013. This is a puzzle game. So you can kind of compare it to Puyo Puyo, Kirby's Avalanche, Tetris Attack, Dr. Mario, games of that nature where you have blocks that are falling down from the top of the screen, and these blocks can be one of 5 things. They can be one of your dream friends, so either Ku, Kine, or Rick, a star, actually 6 blocks, a bomb, or what we call a solid block, which is just like a big gray block, or on the Game Boy screen, a big green block. And the purpose is that on the left side of the screen, DDD is like, ha, you'll never defeat me. And then it gives you a star with a number next to it. And your goal is to get that number to 0 as fast as possible. So, if you have, say you're playing stage 1 on normal difficulty, you have to break like 7 stars. So you have to either try and connect like a star between 2 of the same blocks. So if you have a Kine and a star, you want to try and land up another Kine underneath that star. That'll break that 1 star there, and you'll deduct 1 star point from the total needed to do so. Creating combos in the game is another way to generate stars to decrease that star point. So if you've done 1 combo, that generates 2. 2 combo is 3. A 4 combo or a 3 combo is 4, and it builds and builds and builds, and the max combo is 12 stars across the screen. And that's your end goal. You want to try and get these stars done as fast as possible. So a fun fact about the game is there are 6 columns, and the 2 outermost columns on the left and right, if those exceed the horizontal breaking plane at the very top, your level is not over, your game is not over. The game only worries about the 2 middle columns on the screen. So if those 2 break the top horizontal plane, then you failed the level. Going into the game, though, there are 4 starting difficulties. You have normal difficulty, which is your easiest, hard, very hard, and super hard. Very hard and super hard is when they start introducing the solid blocks, which takes 2 strikes to break that block. One combo or one combination to take the cover off of the block, so to speak, to make it not solid, and then another combo to break whatever contents was inside of it, whether it be a dream friend or a star. And then once you've beaten the 4 starting difficulties, a new difficulty is unlocked called Insane Mode, and it is literal insanity. I watched a few friends play it, and it took them roughly around 3 to 4 hours just to beat that one mode. It's a very hard mode. It's a very fast-paced mode. But if you beat it, it's very satisfying. So, moving on, we have other modes in the game, such as like a time trial, like how many stars can you break in X amount of time. Then we have like a survival mode, like how many stars can you break until you lose. Like the game progressively gets faster and faster and faster and harder. And there's a little like Easter egg in the game where if you've beaten all 5 difficulties, excelled in time trials, and excelled in the survival, the sprite for Kirby actually becomes royalty again, much like a block ball, showing like, hey, like I've mastered this game, like come at me type deal. But something to think about as well is that this game got a sequel. Kirby Star Stacker got a sequel, or a remake rather, that was only released in Japan for the Super Famicom, called Kirby's Super Star Stacker. That game fetches a pretty high price, roughly around $100 to $200, depending on the day, depending on who's selling it, depending if it's boxed or not, making it kind of one of the rare Kirby games since it only came out in Japan for a very specific console. And that game, it has all of the same elements as Kirby Star Stacker, with the addition of 2 big things. It has a story mode now, so Kirby Super Star Stacker has a story mode to it, much like Tetris Attack. And it also, and during that story mode, it offers, or you face off against a boss that you will never see again in a Kirby franchise or in the Kirby series. However, you will see spin-offs of said boss throughout the entire Kirby series. The character name is Grill, and I very much highly recommend watching the speedruns to see this end boss and see how this end credit sequence happens. And the other thing is, during survival modes, depending on how well you did in your survival mode, you're going to get a picture. In Kirby's Star Stacker for Game Boy, once you've completed a difficulty, you get a picture at the end, whether it be Kirby dressed up in a pirate suit riding on Kine, or Kirby and Rick at a picnic. In Kirby Superstar Stacker in survival mode, you would either get Kirby on the stage singing into a microphone, you will either get Ku at a bar by himself kind of being disgruntled, you will have Kine drinking sake out of a bottle, just belligerent, and then you'd have Rick kind of like hollowed out, like, why am I here type deal. It's very Japanese, and it probably wouldn't have gotten away with today's standards in America, but they are very interesting screens to look at, so I recommend Googling them. But those are the spin-offs. If I had to rank the spin-offs and which ones I would play over another, I would say Kirby's Block Ball being number one. There's just more content, it's more entertaining, and there's more of a story to Block Ball than there is in the rest. Then I would jump into Star Stacker, and then I would do Pinball Land last, because I personally am just not a fan of pinball. And there's just not much there in terms of like content to do. It's literally just pinball. So that's how I would rank them in order to play. So Dreamland 2 before Dreamland 1, because Dreamland 1 really doesn't give you much. If you want to see where it all started, sure. But Dreamland 2 is going to give you more bang for the buck with the story. There's more gameplay, there's abilities, etc. With the spin-offs, I would say Block Ball that has the most heft to it for content. It has a story to it. There's a lot more to do. There's multiple endings, etc. So when we come back, we're going to wrap up this episode. Alright guys, welcome back, and this is the wrap-up of This is Game Boy Lite Episode 2. Episode 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really wanted to cover the Kirby series. I'm a very avid Kirby player. I love the Kirby franchise, love the Kirby games. I'm a Kirby speedrunner, like, everything Kirby, like, I encompass everything Kirby, basically. I'm wearing a Kirby shirt right now, even. So, anything Kirby, I love to talk about. I love to talk to other people about everything dealing with Kirby. The 2 SGDQ runs I've done have been Kirby related. Every marathon I participate in, I've probably played a Kirby game of one way or another. I've been in almost every Kirby showcase known to man so far for speedrunning. I just love the Kirby franchise. I love the rich history behind I love everything there is to encompass that company as well. But with that, we have a few things coming up here. We have Midwest Speed Fest coming, starting on August 3rd, the weekend of August 3rd. It's just a bunch of people from the Midwest United States kind of getting together, doing a speedrunning event at a convention this weekend, and probably some other people will prolong this to the next couple weekends. We have the 12-hour challenge. Few people have expressed some excitement to me wanting to learn Kirby's Dreamland 1, which is fantastic. I love teaching people Kirby's Dreamland 1 speedruns because there isn't much to the eye of a watcher, but there is so much to know about the game on a technical level. Like, it's so fun to talk about. And then outside of that, we have the Tiny 10 coming up in a few more months. So I believe Mula and I were trying to figure out like what games we're going to put in there and try and get a list out within the next month or so. You have Nescathlon. I know this isn't Game Boy related, but we have a lot of friends at Retro Gaming Live, RGL. So they're having a Nescathlon, I think, next week or in 2 weeks. Just keep an eye out on that. And then ESA, I think, is over this week or it goes to next week. I don't remember. I can't keep track of marathons, but Anyway, guys, I am eBloodyCandy. If you want to get a hold of me, want to watch me, do whatever it is you do on the internet, you can find me at eBloodyCandy on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and in Discord. Another fun fact, as of today, we have a Discord server, which will be linked in the information below. Please join our server. We would love to hang out with you guys and talk to you. You guys can ask us questions. You guys can interact with us. You guys can talk to Legs, who is a beautiful human being. So with that, shout outs to my co-host whom isn't here, Moelle. You can find him at Moelle, Moelleuh on Twitch. Nostalgia Gaming, I believe it is, on Twitter. And I think he has Nostalgia Gaming and Moelle on YouTube as well. And you can find him as Moelle on Discord. We all call him Mo. And then shout outs to our fantastic producer, SprintingLegs. Like, without her, like, these podcasts, A, it probably just wouldn't exist because Mo and I don't have time to produce. And B, they probably sound like just hot garbage. So huge shout outs to SprintingLegs. You can find her at SprintingLegs on twitch.tv. Go give Moelle and Legs a follow. They're fantastic human beings. So yeah, with that, guys, have a fantastic night, week, weekend, whatever it is you guys do outside of the computer life. And we'll see you guys for episode 3 of Gargoyle's Quest. Peace. And then shout outs to our fantastic producer, SprintingLegs. These podcasts sound like just hot garbage.